Welcome to Speak the Truth in Love with Clint Day from St. Simons Island, Georgia on WCGA 1100 AM, where we do speak the truth in love based on Ephesians 4:15. In today's woke PC culture, there are many forces that want to stop free speech, especially for people of faith. Good men and women must be willing to stand up for their faith and be salt and light to preserve our freedom. True freedom comes from faith in Jesus Christ. In John 8:32, God's Word says, the truth will set you free. Today, I'd like to welcome you, friends, and I'd like to welcome a good friend, Wayne Farley. Wayne, it's great to have you here today.
What's up? How are you?
It's so good. He's a young man that runs Converge with a gathering place on the college campus here in our area. And it's amazing when I think about this young man and what he's doing in a mighty way for the kingdom of God and helping bring people to Christ and educate those future leaders that are being educated at the college level to be the men and women of God that we are praying they will be. In so many places, our society is not leading people in the right direction, especially on college campuses. And it's such a fresh air of light, if you will, that Wayne is actually doing that on a campus. And so, Wayne, just tell us a little bit about what you do, and then I want to read a quote. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read this quote first.
Perfect.
Because you're one of those young people on the front lines, and I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard this. It's from Teddy Roosevelt. And it would do well to remember in our hearts the word of Teddy Roosevelt. He delivered this speech in Paris in 1910, known to be, to us, the man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points how the strong man stumbles, or whether doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcomings. But he does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows the end of the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be done with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And I am so proud of this young man for what he's doing on the front lines for ministry, and I just want to encourage him in every way I can. And I would just want to ask you again, Wayne, what are you doing on the campuses? And, of course, I know recently you were where you had an opportunity to preach outside of the campus, and we'll talk about that too. But tell us what's going on your campus.
Yeah, so on the College of Coastal Georgia, every Monday night we have a worship gathering, which is super special, that we are worshiping Jesus on a secular public campus, which you don't find that a lot. At a lot of public schools, you find ministries that are down the road from the school, but we are on campus in the school, which is super cool. And every Monday night we have worship, a message, fellowship, pretty much a preaching, most of those. And seeing this past semester, we had about 45 to 50 consistent every week students. We'd have the numbers go up a little bit, but I don't play the numbers game because you can have 100 people that aren't consistent in their word. It just is a number. It's just a woo. But for me, it's cool. We have 45, 50, but it's those that are like consistent, coming every single week, growing. We just had Friendsgiving last week, which was super cool that we had those 45. Literally, we had one long table, having dinner together, fellowshipping together, talking about what we're thankful for, what we're grateful for. And it was really cool to just see that go from, August, meeting everybody new for the first time, to months later having dinner together and just reminiscing on all the good things that God has done this semester. So every week we're on campus, and then throughout the week we're leading discipleship groups. So I help have different key leaders that will then help me disciple them, that I'm not the only one in their life that's discipling. And so those 5 leaders, 4 girls, 1 guy, have a group of about 8 to 9 students that meet weekly. So they're meeting on campus for a worship gathering on Mondays, and then throughout the week they're in a home hanging out with older people who are a few, at least a few stages ahead of them, kind of sharing the good news, discipling, walking life with them. So
That's fantastic. Now, we all know that the Great Commission says we're to make disciples.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times making disciples can be the hardest part.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of time, it takes intensity, it takes that one-on-one relationship and spending time that a lot of times people feel they don't really necessarily have the time to do that. But obviously Jesus modeled it with us. He spent a lot of time with the disciples, and he encouraged them to do the same with other people he led to the Lord, that they led to Christ. And so it's such an important thing. How do y'all do that?
when you say that you don't have the time,
Individuals say, I don't have the time to do this. It's too much time.
Oh.
So we got to get them to say, okay, yes, you do have the time. Not only the person being discipled, but the person that says, I really don't have time for that. But we need to encourage them to say, okay, take the time, because there's nothing more important that you do every day.
Yeah, my first thing is, if anyone ever says I don't have the time to do something, I ask them how are they spending their time, because I kind of equate money and time very similar. So, someone who says, well, I don't have a lot of money, I would ask, well, how are you spending that money? Oh, you have a Netflix, you have a YouTube subscription, you have all these different things. So you're telling me that those things you're kind of prioritizing better in your life than, if you were to help a friend or something. So for that question, with college students especially, so what are you spending your time doing? Because if you're not prioritizing and monitoring your time, because you can't really managing time to me sounds like a weird concept, really kind of managing, like, okay, if I'm spending 4 hours on a video game when I should be studying, how do I shrink the, video game hours? And then the same with coming to an event or being in a Bible study. When people say, I can't be in a Bible study because I don't have time, that is the number one best excuse anyone could use, because you do. It's just, are you prioritizing that? Where are your priorities? And are there things that you elevate over that time as what you would think has a high priority in your life, but reality is it doesn't in God's kingdom?
Absolutely. I love that. And we're in a men's group I'm involved with. We're studying a book called Becoming a King. It's by a gentleman that's former or involved with the Wild at Heart ministry. And one of the things he talked about was an interview with Dallas Willard, who is a great Christian counselor and that type of person. But he was talking to Dallas, and Dallas said, one of the main things you need to do, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And he said, he quickly wrote that down, this friend, this author, and he said, most people take notes with Dallas. I even have seen his wife take notes with him, which my wife rarely does with me, which I thought was a great statement. But again, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And because, again, we have these things that we think are so important, it eliminates margin for God, time to spend with him. And I know I'm guilty of it. I am first in line of, I should have gotten up early this morning and gotten in the Word of God. I did not read the Word like I wanted to today. Didn't put that full armor the way I wanted to today. Kind of got in a hurry, had a 7 o'clock men's Bible study, and kind of used that as a rationale for that lack of quiet time. And, of course, I had to make it up a little bit this afternoon, but not the way I needed to.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people get frustrated. They don't understand why their fuse is short. They're aggravated by life. The little things of life bother them. And a lot of it goes back to, did you spend quality quiet time before God, listening to God, reading his word, and really connecting to him, abiding in him, because he will give you that peace that surpasses understanding if you'll do it.
Yeah. I will say, there's an author, John Mark Comer, actually took what he said and made a whole book. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Just finished it. And in the book, they talk about hurry people hurt people.
Absolutely.
Hurry people don't see people, very self-focused. And then it was even talking about, like, when you're in a hurry, you're not training your mind and your body to be present. And so even though you may be in a hurry and then you show up to that event or that Bible study, because you live in this pace of hurriness, you can't actually be present because all you're trained is for hurriness, being hurried. that when you get to the Bible study, your mind is now beginning to think about the next thing, and you miss what's in front of you. And so I don't know much of that guy, but John Mark Comer took that whole concept and kind of expounded on this book. It was basically, how do we eliminate that in our lives? How do we add the margin, and how do we, get consistent? Because that's where like the biggest praise for this semester was just the consistency. And we have a saying that if you just keep showing up, God will keep showing out. And that's the whole thing we're trying to get them to realize of, it's not that I want you to show up in our ministry just so we can have a number, or we can say we had 45 people. I want you to show up every week so that when you graduate and you move on to the next stage of life, you get a girlfriend, a fiance, get married, then you will continue that because you spent 4 years being consistent, that when you go into the next stage, then you're not going to neglect that in your marriage or in your relationships or wherever it may be, because you were consistent. You've built that consistency up. So it's really a stepping stone, I would say, for them as they get ready to leave. So,
and again, that's fantastic. And I just think about even my days at Florida State. One of my favorite times was meals around the fraternity I was involved with, and we actually had Campus Crusade, for example, come in, and now called Crew, come and do Bible studies in my fraternity house. Of course, when I first went there, I was a wild man out of control. So it's amazing how that sense of family is so important. So many people don't have that. And obviously, when you think about 45 or 50 young people sitting together, having a meal, interacting with each other, talking to each other, enjoying life together, again, a lot of people don't have that. So it's such a blessing that you're doing that. So we're going to take a quick break. This is Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia, with Speak the Truth in Love. We'll be right back. Okay, ready?
Yep.
9 minutes, right? Okay. Welcome back to Speak the Truth in Love with Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia. I'm here today with Wayne Farley. He runs Converge Ministry on the campus here at the college campus. And one of the things that I do know, buddy, is that the reality of life, that we need to really focus on our quiet time, being quiet before God, and listening. And I know a lot of people get in a hurry, and we talked about that. We don't want to be in a hurry. We want to really learn how to slow down and enjoy those people, especially that are most important in our lives. I know in my own case, I'm always, if my children call me, my adult children, I'm going to do everything I can to talk to them. I'll do everything I can to at least pick up the phone and say, look, I'm in the middle of whatever, but I'll call you back. I want to let you know that I'm acknowledging your call. If there's any way I can, I do that. I didn't always do that. And I think we need to recognize in reality of life is like 90% of our time is going to be with our children before they're 18 years old. And if you go probably till 12 or something, it's probably 80% of the time. So by the time they're 13, 14, they start getting peer pressure that pulls them in a different direction. So those parents out there that are caught up in the busyness of children, young children, you're changing diapers, or you're taking them piano lessons, you're taking them to sporting events, I just really want to encourage you to really take your time, enjoy that, be there for them, because it's so important. Because I know for a fact, in my teaching 6th grade boys, I can tell by the way they act in my group if that parent is spending more time with them. Now, some of them have ADHD or whatever, and they're a little more hyper or whatever. That may be an issue for them. And I know you see that in the college campus. I know you can see it, the one in rebellion or whatever. They need that adult love and encouragement. And I'm grateful that you're there. You're just a little bit older than them, but young enough for them to say, hey, you're still cool, because I'd be too old, right? But whatever God calls you to do, I get it. But in your case, how are you helping them establish that family, that sense of belonging?
Yes. I think a lot of college students right now, I have college friends that do ministry all over the nation and different campuses throughout the states. And one thing that when we group up and talk about it, one thing that we're really noticing is that when you take a college student and basically put them into a home when they're away from home, you kind of find them in two spaces. One, it's almost a healing thing for them, that if they grew up in a family where mom and dad were working too fast, and never kind of paused. And you have an older couple that's kind of pausing for them, inviting them home in their house. It's a healing thing. And it's not that, for me, I grew up in a very busy household. We had my dad served in the Navy, was always overseas. Mom managed 3, almost 4 kids because my little brother came kind of in the back end of my dad's career in the Navy. And so there was always dance, baseball, football. But no matter if it was, we were outgoing, there was always these pause moments. And so there was a little bit of that, but for students that we see that don't have that and they go into a house, it's almost healing for them of going, okay, I want to, now that I'm not so busy, mom isn't so much required of me to have to get me place to place. I'm kind of a high functioning, student, not really, some of them it's like, yeah, are you really you're not adulting fully, but you're growing. That's what college is for you to finish your stage to grow into an adult. And so putting them into a home helps them have that healing moment. So when they go home, especially over the breaks, they're not so much in a rush, to leave their friends because they've kind of had some healing and they kind of figured out, oh, I miss being able to sit down at a table with my family. Mm-hmm. So when they go home, they don't rush to go see their friends they haven't seen. They want to kind of slow down. And so we see that. And then again, on the other side, if a student did grow up with a family that wasn't so much in a hurry, it kind of gives them that space where it feels like home. So it's like, if they're eating family dinners constantly throughout high school and they go to college, they're no longer eating family dinners. So that could be a gap that's, that has to be filled for them to feel that, that level of certainty that they know where they're in there. Because I'm going to tell you, a student who has that close-knit connection with their family and then goes to college is one of the most challenging times for us. We have a couple of those students where every week they just want to ride home, and I'm like, sure. Look, escaping doesn't solve the problem, because one day you are going to be an adult and you might move halfway across the country, and so you have to learn to navigate how do you still, so having those students that do have that come in, it gives them a place of peace because it's something they're familiar. So whether they're not familiar or they're familiar with, it always comes back to a home heals.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of how
at least you hope it would. But of course we know that's what a healthy home absolutely heals. Well, one thing too is I've heard this, busyness is the enemy of intimacy.
Oh yeah.
Busyness is the enemy of intimacy. I mean, how can you date someone if you don't spend time with them? How can you be married if you don't spend time with them? And I want to encourage everybody out there, think about what is getting in the way of not only your intimacy with God, which is the number one priority, but your intimacy with your spouse or your children or maybe your parents. I mean, it may be your parents are aging. And what are you doing to make sure that intimacy is growing, as opposed to sometimes allowing past sins, past mistakes to get in the way of intimacy? And I know in my own life, there are a lot of regrets that I have because my dad died as a younger man. He was only 44. I was 19. I was in the middle of rebellion. And I never did heal that relationship with him the way I would like to as an adult. I would love to be able to sit down and talk to him. Of course, I think he knows. I believe supernaturally somehow he knows how much I love him, how much I care for him. But I would have sure appreciated being able to say that. And even today in our men's group, we were talking about that, the need to make sure that you write people a handwritten note, not just an email. If it's got to be an email or it's got to be a text, okay, that's fine. But a handwritten slow mail letter. And I know I have 3 or 4 people that I really want to do that. And I'm going to get off my duffs and get it done the next 24 hours. That's one of my goals. And I know people like George Bush Sr., he would literally write a card every day to someone to try to encourage them, thank them for the impact they've had in their lives. And I just think about it. We just celebrated my mom's 90th birthday with her husband this last weekend. And it was such a pleasure to be with them. And I just really was able to enjoy the moment. So often during these holidays, like you're going into Thanksgiving or coming off Thanksgiving, going into Christmas, I want to encourage you, enjoy the moments, be present. Don't allow distractions or anger towards somebody. Aunt Sue made you mad 5 years ago, watch she here, or whatever. Try to really focus on the moment of the joy of the people that bring you that joy, and focus there, of course, on Jesus Christ first, but on that family member too. It's just so important.
Yeah. And I will say, Scott Williamson was one of my professors. I think you,
Yes.
you know Scott from church. We
Former Coca-Cola exec.
Yes, and
In
we
marketing.
we
Very gifted man.
literally had a whole lesson on writing thank you notes
Yes.
in college. And one of the things that he was talking about, that Jimmy Buffett, I think it was not Jimmy Buffett, Warren Buffett, rest in peace, Jimmy Buffett.
Yes.
Warren Buffett wrote him a note, I guess, a long time ago. There was something around that of he went and grabbed something or what, and this guy wrote him a thank you note. And so it's the power of thank you notes, even just not in, it makes things personal. One, people feel seen, people feel noticed. It was, again, you took the time to write that rather than a quick text. Anybody can write a quick text. Anybody can make a quick voicemail or voice memo. It was like, but you had to pause and put a stop in your time of your day, whatever it was, to write a thank you note. And so I thought it was really cool in college that that's what we were learning.
Well, the first letter I get in the mailbox, the first one I want to open is the one that with the handwritten note. That's why the marketers send so many that look like handwritten notes. But I really want the one that has the address of someone I recognize. So yeah. So, well, this is Clint Day from Speak the Truth in Love. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back. Perfect. All right, very good. What else you want to talk about?
We could go back into the intimacy,
okay,
if you want. Whatever.
Okay, well, let's go. Ready. Welcome back to Speak the Truth in Love. Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia, at 1100 a.m., where we do speak the truth in love based on Ephesians 4:15. And I just think about that word intimacy, and you hear people say, into me I see, right? Or into me you I see, or whatever. I hear that a lot with Christian counseling. And I know that that's a big part of where we don't really want to go a lot of times. I know in my own life I was kind of walled off. That's even a meaning of Clinton. One of its meanings is a walled off city looking over water, which is quite interesting. And that's the way I was. And through living well and other breakdowns, setbacks, divorce, whatever, it taught me that I really need to learn how to have more intimacy, not only with God, but with people. Tell us how you help people with that in college.
Yeah, so the first thing I try to is the awareness to intimacy. Like you were saying earlier in the book, if you're in a hurry, it's hard to be in a hurry and to be intimate. And so I kind of, will throw out the idea of, if you were going to a doctor for surgery, would you want your doctor to be in a hurry? And every time it's a no, because, it's the into me I see.
Yes.
That's what a doctor's doing. Into
Yes.
you they see.
Right.
And so
you got to tell them what the problem is.
And so if this doctor is performing surgery, you don't want them to be in a hurry. And so you want them to be intimate. You want them to be able to see everything, go at a pace. And so why would you want your friends to have a friend that's in a hurry? Or, if you don't want your doctor to be in a hurry, just because, then it comes back to the value thing of, you don't want a doctor in a hurry because you're trusting them with your whole life. Well, with your friends, it's the same way of, man, there are people that I trust so much and I care about so much. Why would I want them to be in a hurry or I in a hurry? And so I try to get them to have that perspective of what would it happen if a doctor was in a hurry. So why would we want to, because it will cause damage if a doctor was in a hurry. So it's going to cause damage if we're in a hurry. If a person is only getting the hurried side of you, they'll never truly know you, because again, you cannot be intimate with somebody, whether it's like brotherly love. I'm still single, so I can't say in the dating side and the marriage side, or but I can still say if it works for friendships, then it's gotta work in marriages where you have to be less in a hurry to have more intimacy, and so I get them to see that you can't live a life well if you're always in a hurry. And then the second thing is one of the best things I love to do is add stop signs. I envision adding stop signs in my life throughout the day, where I tell our leaders that come and serve every Monday, if you don't take about 5 minutes to stop before you come in and start setting things up. So like, for example, we have a college girl, she'll come straight from class, right in to start setting up for our event. And I say, hey, I don't want you to come straight from your class to here to start setting up. I want you to give yourself 5 minutes. I want you to go on a walk around the campus. I just want you to breathe. Because if you rush from that to here, with the same amount of adrenaline and the same and pulling into things, you're not going to be focused. You're not going to be present. Again, you're not going to have that awareness to what's happening around you. And again, when we're on campus, people are why we're there. Jesus has placed us there. He's the reason for everything, but Jesus was there for, loved people. So we got to love people. And if you're running from a class that you just bombed a test and now you're stressed and you haven't, put a stop sign in your life to pause for at least 5 minutes and just breathe and refocus your mind and your heart towards Jesus, then you're going to take that same anxiety, that same pressure, whatever it was that you were performing with in that class, into the relationships that are in the room. And it doesn't come off well. It doesn't, if that person comes into the room and, has that same, the people are going to be like, you're going to go up and be like trying to talk to this person, and you're going to realize, oh, she's, I don't know if she's hearing me. Is she focused on what I'm saying? Exactly. People start. So the best thing that we can do, and what I help train our leaders and everybody that really comes, is like, if you could pause a little more in your life, it doesn't have to be long, but allow your mind. In John Mark Comer's book, he writes about this guy that was walking through the jungle, and in the jungle, this American guy, he gets native people to that land, and they start walking, and the native people said, okay, we're going to pause. And so they paused. Well, a couple hours later, maybe it was like an hour later, the American man says, hey, I want to get up and continue. And the native said, no, we're going to wait. And they were like, well, how long are we going to wait? And they're like, oh, we're going to camp here. And he's like, no, we got to continue. We got to keep walking this out. And they said, no. And they said, well, why won't we do that? And the native people said, because we have to wait for our souls to catch up.
Exactly. I heard that story. That's an excellent story.
And so that's kind of the thing that I try to tell them of, like, you got to, if you perform with all that stress and you're pushing yourself trying to get that test, or if you're coming from work or whatever it was, if you don't pause, your soul is going to be way behind you, and you're going to be left with what you just came out of.
Right.
And so that's kind of how we try to, help them see about, if you just put a stop sign in your life, there's stop signs on the road for a reason. So we would stop so we can focus on what's going around. If everything was just one continuous road where there wasn't these stop signs, then you would be running into people, and kind of same in your life.
And I've always heard of people like Lombardi, Coach Lombardi, who was a famous coach we all know. I mean, he was like, if you're not at least, I think it's like 5 minutes early, then you're late. Right.
Yep.
So if you got a meeting at 5:30, you show up at 5:25. And that's what he wants you to do. So we're going to take another quick break. This is Clint Day from Speak the Truth in Love on 1100 AM. We'll be right back.
Perfect.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes. Welcome back to Speak the Truth in Love with Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Jordan, 1100 AM. It's really great to be here today with Wayne, and we're talking about those times of just, making sure you got margin in your life, making sure that you're doing what God wants you to do, and not always being in a hurry. One of the things I do hate, Wayne, a lot of times when I'll go to church or whatever, if I'm a little bit late compared to where I'm pretty much on time, it doesn't give you that opportunity to sit down and just say hey to a few people and tell them you love them and see how they're doing and spend a few extra minutes. So whenever you're going to a meeting, I just want to encourage you, try to get there early, try to get there early enough to where you can enjoy the calmness, if you will, of being early and being on time. Because it's just like Wayne was saying, when you are running from a class and you haven't taken time to kind of chill out before you get into the next meeting, it's almost like you're talking on speed dial, like you're just talking like a cartoon character where they sped up the recording and you can barely understand them. It's like they're talking like a chipmunk or something. They're talking so fast. And I know I find myself doing the same thing. You'll just kind of go, wow, I need to, like Wayne was saying, take the time to be calm, think about it, breathe. And that's why so many times when you're working out with a coach or whatever, they will tell you, make sure you're breathing. Make sure you're taking the time to get enough breath. And I like how you're encouraging this young person to walk around the campus and forget about the test that you just took and move forward and help prepare yourself for the ministry in front of you.
Yeah.
People.
And I will say too, when I think through the college lens of this, I'm more closer to them than I am the next stage of life, because I'm single, don't have any kids. I have 2 dogs,
That's a lot.
It is a lot, but I don't have kids, but just because I don't have doesn't mean I can't do. So like That's one day when I do have kids don't just come in and destroy your schedule. Kids just don't come in and, I would say as the parent, like my mom created a schedule that was beneficial, and it takes a little strategy. I do a lot of things. I am at a lot of places, and I kind of look at that as, if I don't have time to spend towards, not married, not have kids, I don't want to just be lazy. I just don't want to sit down. I don't want to, I rest. Again, I take pauses and stops throughout my day. Just like before even coming in here, you pause, and then someone called me, and I was breathing. I was like, okay, this is my pause. Okay, I can call them back real quick. Because I didn't want to miss that. I was coming from work. I didn't want to walk in here with the same kind of work attitude I had today of like, we got to get this done. And so it takes a little strategy to build your schedule in a manner that is glorifying to the Lord. Because if you are constantly in a busyness and Jesus didn't live in a hurry. Jesus had pauses, and Jesus managed 12 people. Like, if Jesus can manage 12 grown adults to have rest, to pause, to break, and modeled it for them, I kind of keep that mindset of one day, when I do have kids, how can I, again, it comes back to that value thing. How can I place good values in them? One would be, like growing up for me, I loved hanging out with my family a little bit growing up. Now that I got older, I'm like bouncing back and forth, as we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, just spent a lot of time with my sister over the weekend in Dominican Republic. And so I'm like, oh, we're running right back into hanging out for Thanksgiving. But is baseball really that much more important for a young age? So much. Like, my brother was in school sports and travel sports.
Wow.
Was that value enough over being together with family? And so I think that's the questions of like writing out, what do you value the most, and how are you strategically creating a schedule that has all that in there? Because you can do it. I've seen people, my sister does it.
Absolutely. Well, I love this in this book. It says, breathe. Through running into your five senses, allow the Father to slow you down to the pace of your soul. Now attend to the atmosphere of the kingdom of God, the joyous, energetic, affectionate, generous, powerful community of the Trinity on which you have been wholly invited. Risk opening your soul afresh to the love of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Right here you can be present to God. Pause, breathe. 3 long, deep, steady breathes in. 3 long, deep, steady breathes out. Listen. Can you sense a shift? What if the greatest gift you give to your family, to your kingdom, is you, the truest you? It's that simple and that profound. For my heart being present includes a few simple and heroic steps. Go slower, do less, love more. Let me repeat that one more time. Go slower, do less, love more. These steps are flowing into choosing rest, prioritizing play, exercising stillness, and nourishing my heart with some great books, great worship, a great friend, and some great outdoor adventure. As we slow down, do less, and love more, we in turn give permission to those in our world to do the same. And I just love that type of encouragement, again, to slow down. And of course, we know the Word of God talks about, be still and know that I'm God. It talks about waiting on Him. He's going to move in His timing, in His way. And sometimes we all want it done yesterday. That's the way we are in a Western society. And like you said, of these guys that were helping wealthy men climb Mount Everest or whatever they were doing, and they said, we got to wait for our soul to catch up to our body. Yeah. And that's such a wise thing to say.
Yeah. And I think in that is, when you think about when you go slower, you're more aware of like what's around. Like I don't know how a busy parent can be truly aware of what their kids are going through. If we're, for me, watching a busy college student, and if I'm busy as well, or I would say hurried. Jesus was busy. He had a lot on his plate. He went place to place. That man was town to town. He was going to different houses, eating dinner. He was busy. He wasn't in a hurry. When Lazarus died, he said, "Oh, I'll go in 3 days."
Exactly.
So Jesus wasn't always in a hurry. He was busy, and so I think when you slow down, you can be more aware. Because if I lived a hurried life, I would miss what the college students are walking towards. So.
And exactly. And so why is it important that you observe what they're going toward? We'll talk about that in the last segment. We're going to take another quick break. This is Clint Day with Speak the Truth in Love. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Speak the Truth in Love with Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia. I'm here today with Wayne Farley, who runs the Converge Ministry at the college campus here locally. And wherever you are, wherever you're listening, there's ministry going on around you, and there's opportunities for you to be involved, and I really want you to consider doing that. And one of the things that I want to be sure too is to remind y'all can find this program on YouTube, on Spotify, on Rumble, and other places. If you happen to miss the program, you can always go back and listen to it, or something you want to listen to in more detail. I'm grateful to Wesley and D. Cox for allowing me to be on this radio program and starting in that, but we also want to let you know there are other places that it can be listened to if you have time and you missed something that you wanted to really hear maybe again. But again, when you talk about, Wayne, that process of helping these young people get in the right road, if you will, and have those guardrails and make sure they're staying where they need to stay, to grow in their faith in Jesus Christ, also to really bless their lives. I mean, I think a lot of people feel like the 10 Commandments are so restrictive, but they're there to be guardrails to help you live the best life you can. And if you obey those rules and those laws, your life is going to be blessed. Mm-hmm. It's not a matter of holding you back from, quote, what you want to do. It's a matter of helping you live the most abundant life possible. Yeah. So how do you help young people realize that?
I think, so like we kind of earlier we mentioned, making them aware. So giving them something to really think about. And just after making them aware, giving them practical places. Again, like that one girl I said, walk around and pause. Mm-hmm. You give them a practical step in one space, and then you say, go try this in all your other spaces. Yeah. So, I told you to pause before you showed up to our event. Why don't you try pausing before you go into class, mm-hmm. or before you go into your home, or before you, wherever you're coming? What if you put these pauses in your place, like different places throughout your schedule and your day, when you know that you're about to interact with other people? Give yourself that margin. And so if they see it and done in one spot, and then you're like, wait, I see how this helped me today in this moment. I bet this will help me after today. And I bet this will help me tomorrow morning right before I have to go to class, or whatever it may be. And so I think that's the best thing, is like, if you can get, especially for college students, to just walk through it once and they feel that benefit. I think, like you're saying, the 10 Commandments, when the whole book of Leviticus is actually one of my favorite books, because you look at it and people think laws are, I don't know why.
It's a hard read.
It is.
Sure.
And
I like Deuteronomy, so what do I know, right?
And when you think about laws, like, this culture has made laws to seem like it is this bad thing but we have to be thankful for that, because if there wasn't speed laws stopping us from speeding, we could not drive anywhere. Was in Haiti, a couple years ago, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack because of the way they drive, mm-hmm. because there's no speed laws. If, again, the laws that God has given us, one of my favorite is when I did the study, we talked about how the different laws and the different foods, a lot of those foods that God wanted them to stay away from, is because they could create, they could have bacteria grow on them fast, and it could kill them. Tattoos, that's in there. And it talks about, not getting tattoos and not, cutting your body or going below here. Well, why? It talks about not cutting your hair in the same kind of passage about cutting your hair lower than a certain point, because then the knife that you're cutting with gets close to your neck. What happens if that happens? You'll get cut, infection, mm-hmm. you'll die. Mm-hmm. Tattoos, infections, you'll die. So a lot of the laws, it wasn't to stop life, but it was to preserve and elevate. Again, have more abundant life. And so that's what pauses do. That's what these breaks, when you're not in a hurry and you're giving yourself that margin, you're actually going to look back and be like, wow, I'm actually capable. John Mark Comer talks about this in his book that he talks about, of instituting a Sabbath in your life, kind of a big pause is what I call, for the college students, of like, if you could take a few hours on a Saturday and hopefully grow into a whole Saturday of actually honoring the Sabbath, which a whole nother episode we can talk
Absolutely,
about.
we could.
Our church just walked through.
Yes, I went through that class. And it was amazing.
If you could, have a major pause of your week, you'll actually come to a point where you feel like you can do more. Then it becomes a self-control thing of not actually operating in that doing more, but living in the abundance. And so when these students actually start applying the pause and breathing and breaking and, not rushing into, not being in that hurry, you'll see they are more in tune when it comes to receiving God's word. They're more aware of the messages and worship. It changes your whole mindset, especially when you, again, all that we do is in community. And so, when as believers, like that is our mindset as a Christian. Everything that we do is in a community. It's people. If we're in a hurry, we're not going to be good people, and we're not going to be good to people. And God calls us to love our neighbor. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, all your soul, all your strength. Again, I don't know how you can love God so much if you're in a hurry. I don't know how your mind processes it. I don't think it's able to. I think it's impossible. To be fully, if you can't be fully aware of your surroundings in a hurry, how can you be fully aware of your relationships? And so pausing will actually help you in that hurriedness. And I see it with college students. They become better performers in their athletics, better performers in their schools and their studies, because again, they're not rushing from one thing into just studying to be thinking about what they just left. So now they're not focusing on what they're it's a cycle. And so if you could add these stop signs in your schedule throughout the day, and pausing and breathing and slowing down and not being in a hurry, it's crazy how much more aware you'll be.
Absolutely. And again, I just think about how much more you're going to enjoy people around you. And then again, just the relaxing of enjoying the moment. We have so many situations where we get so fired up that it's hard to just relax and enjoy the moment. And Wayne, I just want to thank you for joining us today. And I want to say good day to friends out there for joining us and to listen to Speak the Truth in Love with Clint Day on WCGA 1100 AM from St. Simon's Island, Georgia. And remember, every day is a God day.